Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Nearly 40 foreign students in San Diego have had their visas revoked. One of those students has already been deported. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with one international student activist who is worried they might be next.
Images of international students being detained by federal immigration agents are spreading fear and anxiety.
I'm pretty afraid of what's happening right now, especially that they're holding immigrants, they're abducting them.
You're hearing the voice of an international student in San Diego. She's involved in the pro-Palestine movement and is terrified that she'll be detained for her activism.
So I'm personally scared whenever I see these images because I don't want to end up like that.
KPBS is withholding her name to protect her from possible retaliation by the U.S. State Department, which has revoked more than 100 student visas in California. Among them were 35 at UC San Diego and 4 at San Diego State University. Secretary of State Marco Rubio initially said the revocations were connected to protests of the high Palestinian casualty count resulting from the Israeli military's response to the 2023 terrorist attack by Hamas.
And we're going to continue to do it. So when we identify lunatics like these, we take away their student visa.
Rubio has accused student protesters of supporting a terrorist organization, but has offered no proof. More recently, Rubio has said that the State Department doesn't need a specific reason to revoke student visas.
When you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason.
Last week, the federal government announced that it was monitoring the social media accounts of immigrants to look for signs of what they see as anti-Semitism. That has students, like the person KPBS spoke with, thinking twice about what they post, share, and like.
Should I be thinking about what I'm liking? What is actually anti-Semitic? Like, what are they saying? Like, is this picture or this post about someone losing her child, is this post about this woman losing her child, is it anti-Semitic just because this person is Palestinian? Like, what do they mean by that? Even professors are reaching out to international students to be like, hey, maybe don't post as often as you do. And I think it's valid to be pretty scared at this point.
The student KPBS interviewed says that other international students are now reconsidering coming to the United States.
And I'm seeing a lot of people think it through, like, do I really need to come to the U.S.? People are considering the UK, Canada.
Immigration lawyers are worried about the lack of transparency regarding the revocations. Maria Chavez is with the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, or PANA.
What we're seeing right now is just the mass revocation of student visas, but it's growing outside of just the pro-Palestinian movement. It's growing to just students in general. There's really been no rhyme or reason, no answer given as to why their visas were canceled.
She points out that Secretary Rubio is correct. He can revoke visas for multiple reasons. But she says that students should be able to appeal the revocation or find another way to stay in the country.
Visas can be canceled just about for any reason, right? But I believe in due process. And students should have the ability to know why so that they can appeal it if needed.
This is the land of the free!
Activists also see the revocations as an attack on free speech. Chavez says the Trump administration is conflating support for civilians in Gaza with support for Hamas.
You can be pro-Palestinian, you can support the Palestinian community and to not be, being killed and being shelled at, and not support Hamas, because those are not one and the same. I don't know, individuals who are pro-Palestine who are pro-Hamas.
She's inspired by students who speak out for what they believe in, despite the current threat.
I think them exercising their right to free speech is incredibly brave, especially continuing to do so under this administration where free speech is very clearly being targeted.
For her part, Chavez says she will keep on fighting to defend their rights. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
And this same issue inspired a demonstration today on the campus of San Diego State University. Anak Bayan San Diego, the Chicano Studies Association, and Students for Justice in Palestine are among those who organized the event. Last week, SDSU President Adela de la Torre announced 4 international students had their visas revoked. The university says it did not coordinate with the Trump administration and that it did not receive an advance notice. Dozens of universities across the country participated in a day of action against Trump administration policies. It comes as the president ramps up pressure on Harvard after the school refused to eliminate its DEI policies. The latest on their face-off coming up.
We've kept things cool over the past couple of days, and we continue to do so as we head through tonight. 58 the low, plus a few of those showers basically working their way in on that westerly flow. So we are still getting the onshore flow, which is going to create a little bit of moisture, but we're going to ease out of it as we head into the weekend. I'll have a full forecast coming up.
Last night was the State of the County address, a chance to check in on the county government. The Board of Supervisors acting chair Tara Lawson-Remer spoke at the Natural History Museum in Balboa Park. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has the highlights.
Crowds packed into the Natural History Museum to hear Lawson-Remer's speech on the state of San Diego County.
Let's talk about progress, about taking one step forward and one step back.
She started her address with the progress the county has seen in recent years, but also talked about how federal cuts are forcing the county to step back.
The federal government is slashing programs we rely on for health care, housing, clean air and water, public safety, and disease prevention. Every decision Washington makes impacts our ability to serve you. And when federal leadership fails, local government must lead.
Then she presented a game plan. To fight federal cuts on health care, Lawson-Remer proposed the creation of San Diego's own Medicaid health care plan. She says funding could come from a local ballot measure.
A local revenue measure could leverage $1 billion a year to support health care and other needs. Enough to make sure that struggling San Diegans can see a doctor when they're sick and get treatment for addiction or mental health, and avoid financial ruin from medical bills.
She says this measure could also fund law enforcement and services for families and children. Another proposal, to use county savings on environmental projects and legal defense programs. And to help the housing crisis,
we're proposing something simple. A small transfer fee on sales of the top 1% of properties in San Diego County, paid only once when these properties change hands. Those with homes in the top 1% can pay forward just a small share of that fortunate windfall when their property is sold to help break the stranglehold of our housing crisis.
She says this transfer fee could be used to house first responders, teachers, and first-time home buyers. Her message was one of local support as federal changes continue to rock San Diego and the nation. Whether Lawson-Remer's ideas will be used could depend on the outcome of the special election in July. Right now, the board is made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. The July election will determine whether Chula Vista Mayor John McCann or Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre fill the empty District 1 seat. McCann is a Republican and Aguirre a Democrat. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A recent CDC survey shows 80% of South Bay residents say their life has been negatively impacted because of cross-border sewage. It's not just a health issue. Nonprofit Imperial Beach Historical Society has a quality of life dashboard which monitors several factors like air quality, civic engagement, and housing. They say frequent advisories, beach closures, and the smell are driving away visitors and impacting businesses' bottom line.
Beaches are a big part of our culture here in San Diego, whether that be tourism and recreation. So the health of our beaches is closely connected to the health of our economy.
The data shows a dramatic increase in closures. According to the Historical Society, there were 722 pollution-related closures in beach mile days in 2022. That number jumped to over 2,200 in 2023. Beach mile days are the mile of coastline affected, multiplied by the number of days it was posted as closed. The data so far shows that trend continued in 2024. A new state law is giving families hope when a loved one refuses treatment for mental illness or addiction. Senate Bill 43 expands who can be placed on an involuntary psychiatric hold. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says it will take a while to see the law's impact.
Dear Mom, thank you for choosing to be my mom and raising me, and for still helping me in the ways that you do now that I am an adult.
For Julia Holiday, this letter from her daughter is a reminder of who she used to be before the meth addiction, before the countless psychiatric hospital stays.
I have been challenged by my loved one, my daughter, for 20 years. She was diagnosed at 16 with bipolar disorder, with auditory complications.
Julia and her husband Kirk are among many families dealing with what's known as dual diagnosis, when someone struggles with both a mental illness and substance use disorder. They've tried drug treatment programs, conservatorships, and extended hospital stays, but their daughter leaves after just a few days against medical advice.
Turn 18, things change fast, and you don't even realize the significance of that until you're faced with trying to get information, trying to help.
The older she gets, the tougher it is to intervene.
The most challenging part for me is grappling with the idea that she's beyond hope.
Their daughter is now 36. Julia says she just got evicted from her apartment and is living in a motel. That's where Senate Bill 43 comes in. The law updates California's definition of grave disability to include people with severe substance use disorder. Julia read about it in the newspaper.
I was so excited. I said, oh, this could be actually it, right?
She asked her daughter's psychiatrist about it.
And they were kind of a wait and see attitude. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it navigates through the system.
The county has had a year to prepare for the implementation of the new law. Dr. Luke Bergman says they've trained hospital staff, first responders, and peace officers how to apply it. They also partnered with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to raise awareness about who it's meant to help.
I would say that implementation has gone pretty well, primarily in that we haven't seen huge numbers of people detained and transported for care under the terms that SB 43 establishes.
The county is expected to release the first numbers in June on how many people have been detained under SB 43. But for the Holidays, whose daughter was just in the hospital again a few weeks ago, the new law hasn't changed much for them yet.
It was never mentioned once in the 5 or 6 weeks my daughter was in the hospital. Maybe there could be some more advocacy on it, or maybe outreach to families and say, hey, we're going to have an orientation about this.
At Sharp Grossmont Behavioral Health, lead social worker Candy Elson helps families navigate these difficult decisions.
It's very difficult to help them stay in the hospital for a long period of treatment if they don't want to be there. So I spend a lot of time explaining to families the nature of the mental health law in California, the limitation of resources.
She says SB 43 is well-intentioned, but hard for families to navigate.
And I sometimes say it's like false hope, because if your family member still says, I'm not going to get treatment, nothing's going to happen.
Involuntary treatment is possible, but it requires intervention by the court. Still, the Holidays hope that the next time their daughter finds herself in crisis, the new law can help her.
Well, I just hope that people who have family members, friends, or other people in their lives who suffer from mental illness and dual diagnosis don't abandon those people.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a suspect is in custody after a deadly shooting on the campus of Florida State University. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Officials with the 1st Marine Division identified 2 Marines who were killed after a crash on April 15th. 22-year-old Lance Corporal Albert Aguilera and 28-year-old Lance Corporal Marcelino Gamino were killed during a convoy movement while supporting southern border operations near Santa Teresa, New Mexico. Another Marine with the 1st Combat Engineer Battalion remains in critical condition. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. U.S. stocks were mixed today. The Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 all fell yesterday as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell gave his starkest warning yet on the potential consequences of President Trump's tariffs. Cheryl Hubbard has more on his remarks and the latest on consumer confidence.
A new warning from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell as he called the Trump administration's tariffs unprecedented in modern history, saying their effects remain highly uncertain.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
With investors feeling the effects of Trump's tariffs daily, Wall Street reacted to Powell's words almost instantaneously, sending stocks tumbling. Businesses and consumers are on edge.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we don't know. Every day it's something different, so it's either on or it's off, or it's this or it's that.
The uncertainty is pronounced and it is profound in the state of California.
California Governor Gavin Newsom and State Attorney General announced Wednesday they are suing to try to stop the tariffs, saying the president does not have the authority to impose them. Meantime, the Fed is responsible for promoting full employment and helping keep inflation in check, but Chairman Powell says tariffs have the potential to threaten both.
Unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way, and some part of those tariffs come to be paid by the public.
I'm Cheryl Hubbard reporting.
New developments today in the fight between the nation's oldest university and the Trump administration. The Department of Homeland Security is threatening to strip Harvard University of its eligibility to host international students. Lee Waldman brings us the latest.
A battle is ramping up between Harvard University and the Trump administration. Wednesday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem sent Harvard a scathing letter demanding detailed records of Harvard's foreign student visa holders' illegal and violent activities by April 30th, 2025, or face immediate loss of student and exchange visitor program certification. A spokesperson for the university said late Wednesday Harvard is aware of the letter and that it will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. The DHS letter also refers to anti-Semitism, but doesn't outline specific incidents. Andrew Crespo, a Harvard professor and general counsel, says this isn't about anti-Semitism.
This is a president who, when he was campaigning for office, said that he didn't like what was taught at America's universities and that he was going to bankrupt them unless they started teaching something different.
This comes as the IRS is making plans to rescind the tax-exempt status of Harvard, according to 2 sources. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon suggests Harvard wouldn't be the only university looked at by the IRS.
I've only heard the reference right now to Harvard, but I think if IRS looks at it, they might look at it across other universities, but that's a guess on my part.
The administration has already blocked more than $2 billion in funding from the nation's oldest university after Harvard rejected the Trump administration's demand for policy changes at the school. Thursday, dozens of universities and colleges across the U.S. are planning a national day of action to push back against what organizers say is, quote, escalating repression at home. Lee Waldman, KPBS News.
The San Diego Humane Society is raising the alarm about the potential impact of the city of San Diego's proposed budget cuts. Mayor Todd Gloria's proposed 2026 fiscal year budget includes a 20% or $3.5 million cut to the organization's funding. President Gary Weitzman says these cuts would impact the Humane Society's ability to take in animals and provide essential services like its Humane Law Enforcement Division.
We are here to do the work. That's our mission. We won't turn people away. We won't turn animals away. Our budget is $17 million to do services throughout San Diego County, responding to the city of San Diego. And a cut like that would actually jeopardize everything that we do.
The mayor's office says the exact services that will need to be cut will happen in negotiations with the Humane Society. An official budget proposal is expected out next month, which we will preview tomorrow on Evening Edition.
It's been a cool, damp kind of pattern, and we're going to continue that as we head into Friday. So really not much of a change for us. As we work our way into the weekend, though, warmer, drier. I really think it's going to be pleasant as many of us are heading into some type of holiday weekend, then dry with the marine layer as we continue into early next week. So we should be void of the showers, but we'll still have the night clouds into the early morning hours. As we take a look around tonight, though, still some showers out there in the city. 58 for the low. Head to Oceanside, 53, likely to see some showers there. A little drier as you work your way through the interior. Borrego Springs coming down to 54 degrees. Tomorrow, we'll try to brighten up through the interior. 73 in Borrego Springs, but for the city, we're still in the mid-60s. And again, onshore flow here keeps that chance for showers. Chula Vista, one of those spots. Temperatures there in the mid-60s. As we work our way in throughout Friday, of course, you can see we are getting rid of the bulk of the storm system. So while we keep the onshore flow behind things, we are pulling out of the cooler pattern. Ultimately, that'll mean some milder times heading into the weekend, which means those numbers go up for us. In fact, to the upper 60s here Saturday for the coast with some more sunshine. So I think it's a nice little reprieve for us, and it should be pretty quiet into Sunday where we keep things mild and into the mid-60s. We'll take you to the inland communities because here we actually bounce back into the mid-70s. So it's a good jump as we work our way from Friday into Saturday of about 10 degrees, and it is going to be notably drier. We're going to hold that drier trend into Monday and Tuesday, though add maybe a few more clouds so we still keep the marine layer around into the early week. Mountain communities, well, we do brighten up. We'll still be on the cool side for Saturday. Then we go into the lower and mid-50s beyond that. So that's where we get into that milder trend as we head towards Sunday. And for the desert communities, back to the 80s here, even upper 80s pushing 90 degrees as we head into early next week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constancer.
If you travel and like to send picture postcards to the folks back home, you're part of a long and colorful tradition. More than a century ago, the idea was the same, but the postcards were definitely different. Ken Kramer takes us back in this story about San Diego.
These 25-cent picture postcards today are a little predictable, don't you think? They say San Diego and there's a photo of whatever, but spin back in time and you really got something for your penny. Like a glimpse down D Street here in 1910. Of course, today there is no D Street. It's been long ago changed to Broadway. Or here's a look up H Street past Kyle's Bathhouse in 1908. No, there's no H Street either. It's been changed to Market. And by the way, these were penny postcards. Penny to buy and a penny to mail in 1906. How about this? This is looking up 5th Avenue from G Street in 1910. They added a moon there for effect. And the same view today. Or this one, prior to 1915, look over here. This is where the buildings of Balboa Park would be built. Nothing there yet, though.
You were far less likely to have a camera yourself in those days. You just didn't go around snapping pictures of everything. These postcards were the way you showed the folks back home how strange and wonderful this San Diego place was.
To us, we can't help but notice some changes. Here, for example, is the courthouse in 1910. And see all those statues up there? The courthouse was torn down decades ago, but those figures are still preserved at the Historical Society. Maybe not in the best shape, but considering they stood watch high above the city streets for so long, it's remarkable they're around at all. Nice picture here of the lower Otay Dam back before 1915, just months before it collapsed in the middle of a huge rainstorm, dumping millions of gallons of water down canyons and downstream, killing many people in one of our county's biggest tragedies to that time. On the other hand, look at the inside of La Jolla's Valencia Hotel. I don't think that's changed. Things you don't see at all anymore, like log rafts floated down here from up north. They'd be cut in sawmills here, and the lumber used to build houses in San Diego. 4.5 million feet of timber being towed here. And the Ingersoll Candy Company at 1015 5th Street, before they changed the name to 5th Avenue. Ingersoll Candy, where poinsettia chocolates were made. And here, what's described as a typical San Diego home in midwinter. Imagine. No snow, no ice, no mud. No, you couldn't beat it. Or this, one of the real things which is making San Diego famous, it read, Consolidated Beer. From a proud new bank building in National City to the latest in rail transportation to take you to La Jolla, these penny picture postcards told our story to an envious outside world who looked at them in wonder a century ago, and in the doing so, how they must have spun their own mental pictures about San Diego.
And Ken Kramer has a half hour of stories about San Diego every Thursday evening at 8 o'clock right here on KPBS. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. A judge says Google is operating an illegal advertisement monopoly. NPR's Morning Edition looks at what the ruling could mean for the future of the tech giant. And on KPBS Roundtable, Olympic surfing is headed to a popular beach in San Diego. Get the latest from KPBS delivered right into your inbox. We have a variety of newsletters, including daily headlines, KPBS Arts, streaming picks, and our North County focus. Go to kpbs.org and look for the newsletter section at the top of the screen, and from there, you can sign up with your email address. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.